There's something wrong with the deer in my town. I live in the town of Briar Ridge, Oregon. It's a small town encased in forest with one road in or out. There's a lot of rain, a lot of confiners, and a lot of deer hunters, mostly because there's a lot of deer here and not much else to do. We have a hunting store, a grocery store, an A&W, and a town pump, and that about covers it. In the summer, we get a few college kids here and there who want to try hiking, hunting, or camping, so they stay in the path-through motel in town and get lost in the mountain range, and inevitably, every year, some town folks organize a search party to back up the rangers until they're found. Some of the town folks who think they're hilarious have set up a betting pool of various criteria for the season's lost and found hikers: age, size of hiker's party, level of actual preparedness, and even level of drunkenness. These lost hikers are usually found within a few days, and by the end of the summer, they all disperse back to whatever dorm they came from, and everyone goes back to business as usual. In the fall, the leaves just about suffocated every flat surface available to them, and the rain makes sure nobody is dry for a good couple of months. But it's also deer hunting season in the fall, so it's generally everyone's favorite season, and all the excitement, barbecues, and drunken bullshit begins and ends there. In the winter, it's sometimes snowy, sometimes festive, but always quiet, except for the deer. I don't know what it is, but the peaceful quiet of winter brings the deer out of the depths of the forest like moths to a lantern. One of my favorite things to do when I can't sleep is put a coat and shoes on and walk out onto the street in my pajamas and watch the deer in the fog. It's beautiful in an ethereal kind of way to see the lithe forms of calmly ghost through the night, lit up by the occasional streetlight. Some people feed them by putting out piles of corn and oats on their yards. Some people set up trail cameras, and most people just leave them alone. Everyone knows that the deer haunt the town at night, so the rare nighttime driver knows to drive slowly. But lately, something's changed with them, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. It all started with Miriam Miller hitting a deer on the old country trail. The trail is a gravel road that leads to Miller's homestead, a gourd and squash farm with a couple of chickens and a useless rooster. The Millers have lived here for 3 generations, building the homestead out of an old West Cabin outpost, hence the name of the trail. My point is that Mrs. Miller has been driving that trail since she first got behind the wheel, and she absolutely has no reason to be driving faster than maybe 5 miles an hour, and yet the deer that went through her windshield looked like she had either driven into it at 60 miles an hour, or it had 4 leaps onto her windshield, antlers first, with the full intent on going through it. The latter one is the story she had been telling everyone since she got out of the hospital with all that bandaging around her head and chest. Mrs. Miller is 86, and with the blood loss and concussion, nobody really believes her. The second incident was when Rob, the owner of the hunting store, was out on his usual end-of-season deer hunt. The story goes, as he had gotten to his usual spot, set up camp, and was trying to heat some dinner over his campfire. Rob isn't the brightest guy around, and he was opening a can with a knife. Inevitably, the knife slipped and grazed his thigh with it. Not life-threatening, but it was bleeding pretty good. Halfway through patching up his leg, Rob spotted a deer entering the clearing he had set up camp in. Rob reached for his rifle. He couldn't believe it. What hunter is so lucky the deer came to him? Well, before he could even get his hands on the gun, the deer lunges at him and bites him. Hard. Not just once, but several times. Drawing blood, kicking to the ground and pinning him there. As Rob tells it, the damn thing bit him so hard it bit right through his forearm too, and the cast proves the break. Just not necessarily that the deer did that to him. This is another one no one would believe if it weren't for the flat, teeth-sharp wound surrounded by an ugly, dark and purple bruising. He said he eventually got his gun and shot it, but he wasn't sure he even hit it since it was thrashing him around with its teeth, like a dog trying to rip chunks off, and it was in a blaze of pain and panic. He called for help over the radio for the first time in his life. He's one of those super glue it shut and sanitize it with whiskey types. When the ranger got there, the deer was long gone, but Rob was still laying in the dirt, clutching his rifle like it was the last trip to shore in the rapids, spouting out nonsense about hearing the mule deer's ears flapping around while it wrenched its head back and forth, and how he ain't never seen hate in a deer's eyes before. The ranger said he looked like he lost a fight to a deer with dentures. Not a fucking vampire mule deer, but the bruising. You know how much force it takes for a herbivore's teeth to break skin? What the fuck could make a deer do that? Chronic wasting disease doesn't exist in Oregon. Epizootic hemorrhagic disease makes deers stupid and dead, not violent. And sure, plenty of hunters have been killed by deer defending themselves or what have you, but they kick and jab with their antlers, not bite like fucking Cujo. Normally, I would shrug this kind of thing off as bored small-town people exaggerating the stories for something to do, but I can't deny the proof of the injury at least. There have been some other stories around town too. Matt, the miller's teen's grandson, swore up and down that a deer killed his cat and ate part of it. His parents kept saying it must have been a coyote or a bobcat, and Matt just freaked out about the deer. But Matt will tell you he saw it in that kind of panicked way only a kid who sees too much but understands too little can. Kind of believe him. I woke up this morning around 3 a.m. with that sick feeling of dread, and only accompanies a threat with primal animal brain is processed, but your conscious human one hasn't. I sat up and took a look out my window, and what I saw struck me. There was a deer standing out there, watching me sleep. It didn't spook when I spotted it. This thing was nose to the window, so close its breath fogged nearly the whole lower half of the window. I was frozen in place for what must have been upwards of 10 minutes, and I swear on my mother's life I have never seen that thing blink once. I understand now what Rob meant about the hate he saw in that deer's eyes that day.